As an 11-year-old schoolboy growing up in Leeds, each morning I would undertake a long bus journey from Winmore to the city centre where my school was located. I first made this journey in September 1969. 5 months earlier, in April 1969, a man named David Oluwale had been killed in the city centre. The story had been widely reported in newspapers and on television. It was clear, even to my 11-year-old senses, that the city of Leeds was somewhat traumatized by the death of this man named David Oluwale. During the next 2 years, this sense of trauma deepened as an external police investigation was opened into what exactly had transpired that had caused this man to lose his life. The results of the investigation were shocking, and eventually 2 police officers stood trial and were subsequently jailed for their part in the death of David Oluwale. Their gross behavior had gone way beyond any authority granted to them by their uniform or their badge. David Oluwale arrived in Leeds in 1949, a teenage stowaway on a ship from Nigeria that had docked at Hull. In those days, it was customary for stowaways to receive a mandatory short sentence, which was often served at Armley Jail here in Leeds. Upon his release, David found lodgings near the university and secured a job in a car factory in Hunslet. The young man hoped to one day become an engineer, but it wasn't to be. On an almost daily basis, the Leeds City Police Force targeted David Oluwale. Young hooligans mercilessly taunted him, but David Oluwale always answered back. And as a result, he ended up being dispatched to the other place of incarceration that was meant to control those who simply didn't know their place, the mental asylum. In this case, the one at Menston, where he remained for 8 years. Once discharged, David had nowhere to live, and so he took to the streets of Leeds, sleeping in shop doorways and wherever he could find shelter. Inevitably, the police brutality began again, and this time it escalated. In April 1969, 2 Leeds City police officers chased and terrified David Oluwale through the city centre streets, and somehow David, a man who couldn't swim, ended up in the river. There were, of course, no witnesses. David Oluwale drowned to death. During the short 39 years of his life, many people and many institutions in this city neglected David Oluwale. He was an immigrant. He was homeless. He was plagued with psychological problems. He was black. These are facts. To some, he was invisible, the man in the street that you quickly step around as you avert your eyes. To others, he was simply a disheveled nuisance, an embarrassing blot on the landscape. However, over the years, the evidence of David's life and the ugly reality of his death have proved instructive, forcing this city to confront many uncomfortable truths. Because of David Oluwale, I think we have a better understanding of ourselves, our short-sightedness, our forgetfulness, our inability to take responsibility for the ills in our city, our cowardice. As a city, we failed him. But let's learn from this and not fail ourselves. We are, all of us, social animals. We live in communities, and we have a deep responsibility to look out for those amongst us who are weak and who are suffering. After all, animals do this. And just what kind of animals are we if we fail to do this for our fellow human beings? During the past decade, the David Oluwale Memorial Association has actually done astonishing work in this city to focus our collective minds on the legacy and the death of David Oluwale. They have paid particular, but not exclusive attention to issues that are associated with migration, with homelessness, with racism, and with mental health. Their work is ongoing, and together with Leeds Civic Trust, they offer us today a wonderful and permanent tribute to the life of this citizen of Leeds in the form of a Blue Plaque. But one final thought. We should, at this moment, all of us remember that David Oluwale's life may have ended here in Leeds, but like all immigrants to our city, his journey began elsewhere, across the water in Nigeria. In 1949, his parents and his siblings said goodbye to a brave, ambitious teenager who was ready to depart for England. We owe his parents a moment of quiet reflection. Your teenage son came to us and thereafter endured a difficult 20 years in our city. We could have done more for him. In fact, we should have done more for him. But we do remember your David. In fact, we've learned from him. And today in Leeds, we honor your son.